live. We are live on Clubhouse and I don't know, on other social media. What's your relationship with social media? All right, with the phone, I understand that you don't really love using the phone to be a phone. And what about social media?
Well, social media, from my perspective, it's almost impossible to have a sort of broad categorical judgment or perspective, because, I mean, and forgive me, I'm stating the obvious, but there are phenomenal uses of social media and there are horrifying uses of social media. You know, there are phenomenal uses of the same platform. Like sometimes on Instagram, you see the worst content in the world that makes you want to despair of humanity. But then also on Instagram, you'll see the most wonderful content that makes you love humanity. So I almost, well, also I would qualify that by saying, like, as an animal rights activist, social media is one of the most remarkable tools that we have, you know, because there is nothing more powerful than posting a picture of a rescued baby cow to remind people that baby cows exist and that people should have an emotional connection to them. So I don't follow any influencers for the most part, like that world, you know, of like people who are on vacation or promoting beauty products, I really could care less about. My main interest is animal rights and trying, it's almost like using social media as a propagandist, not for myself, not for my career, but for my activism.
Also because, I mean, if you use it right, you can really spread great messages, great ideas. But also, for instance, I was watching on YouTube a video where you were explaining how you created a song. It was really interesting because I'm so ignorant about music. So I would have no idea how to start from. But watching you describing how you start with an idea of a song, the piano, then the drums, putting the pieces together, I thought, well, you know, it doesn't look so difficult. Then I tried, it doesn't work, but it's incredible. You know, you can spread a lot of information and ideas in a good way. Unfortunately, I mean, Trump in the US, not to talk bad about Trump, but he created this use of social media, always very controversial, and you know, because social media works on engagement, but that's not the right use. So I mean, you can use it in the right way, I think.
Yeah, I mean, from my perspective, one of the most important questions around social media is an individual objectively assessing whether or not they're using it in a healthy way. You know, and that's down to each individual. But I think that for me, having quite strict social media discipline keeps me from losing my mind, you know, because like most people, if left to my own devices, I will pick up my phone 500 times a day. You know, I will check Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, just back and forth, CNN, New York Times, just keep scrolling through them every 5 minutes. You know, and it's then at the end of the day, all I've accomplished is made my thumb sore and made me feel like a crack addict at the end of a bender. So I think social media hygiene and discipline is so important. Like I have a rule, I am only allowed to look at my phone 6 times a day.
Wow, I love it.
That's my, and I keep my phone, and I keep my phone in a drawer in a bathroom I don't go into. So like, because if it's sitting on my kitchen counter, if it's sitting next to me on a desk, I'll always pick it up. And I know myself, without that discipline, I will spend half of my waking day, my waking hours on social media. And that is so unproductive and so unhealthy.
It is. It's incredible how unhealthy it can be. Moby, one thing that I'm really interested is I watched your documentary, all right, Moby Doc, and I started skeptical because, you watch a documentary and you think, oh, all right, documentary about Moby. I don't know. I was a bit skeptical. The honest opinion. Okay.
Sure.
And then I loved it. It was fantastic. And I found it, I don't know, I found it inspiring, and it goes deep into very important topics. It's about death, meaning, fame, but also in your way that is sometimes very, you have this humor, this sense of humor, that you can also talk about a very a huge problem, but in a nice way. So I really found it fantastic. That I wanted to tell you, because it's not happening often, in the Netflix era, that you watch something and at the end you have some kind of meaning in what you just saw. It's just a movie that you say, all right, okay, next, But in that case, it was really, really, really interesting. So I wonder how did you put it together like that? Because at the end, it's easy to say it was great, but how did it happen?
Well, when we started working on it, it's the first criteria we established was what not to do. Which I think is a good approach to a lot of different things. Like sometimes, as individuals, we don't always know the right thing to do, but a lot of times we can figure out the wrong thing to do. So it's the first, it's almost like Maslow's hierarchy applied to creation, where the first thing is don't do these things. And so the number one goal in what not to do was we didn't want to make something that looked and felt like every other music documentary. We didn't want to make something that was bland or banal, because my feeling is, if you're going to put something out into the world, don't waste people's time. Either be phenomenally entertaining or phenomenally educational or phenomenally honest. And one of the main goals in this documentary, which, by the way, anyone who's Googling it will see it doesn't come out until the end of May. The release date's May 28th. And I'm not saying that to promote it. I'm just saying that because we're referencing something that right now only about 10 people on the planet can actually see. So we wanted to make something honest and interesting and also idiosyncratic. And luckily, it was pretty easy to figure out what not to do, because there's so many generic public figure documentaries out there.
Right.
So we just looked at those and we're like, okay, we don't want just one after another talking heads saying bland things. So the only interview in the movie is with David Lynch. So technically David Lynch and I are the only the only featured interviewee subjects in the entire movie, which probably tells you something about the character of the movie.
I loved it, and it's very connected with your book that, by the way, has an Italian version. And that what was funny, by the way, I'm curious to know about your relationship with Italy, and I also have a couple of curiosity about your past and Italy. When is the last time that you've been in Italy? Pandemic, pre-pandemic, of course.
Well, the last time I would have been in Italy, I think would be about 5 years ago, 6 years ago. Certainly, it's been a while, because as time has passed, I've realized I love playing music, and I hope to play music for the rest of my life, but I really don't like touring.
I see.
I won't complain about it, because no one in their right mind should ever listen to a music, especially like a public figure musician complaining about being a public figure musician. But at the same time, I toured for decades, and one of my goals in life is to never tour again.
I see.
Which is, of course, drives my manager kind of crazy, because touring is the only way musicians make money. So by me saying that I won't tour, I'm basically saying to my manager, hey, let's work on music. By the way, no one's ever going to make money from it.
But anyway, I don't know how do you define your job now, but I was checking about what you're doing now, and you give away what the earning from the book or your restaurant to animal organization. So I mean, it doesn't look like you are building at the moment your activity, your music activity, to make money. Or if you make money, you give it away. So I don't think the manager will be happy. I don't think Dave will be particularly happy about it.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, I guess I've gotten to a simple but lucky place where I have enough money to pay the rent. I have enough money to buy sweatshirts. I don't need more. Like, you know, I have one car that I drive to the health food store. Why would I need a second car? I'm just one person. Like, I don't need a plane. I don't need, you know, a fancy vacation house. I don't even need fancy vacations. So rather than spend money on stupid things that I actually don't care about, I'd rather try and, you know, support, you know, politicians who are in line with my values and organizations who I think are doing good work.
You mentioned what you wear. I have a question that is in my mind. Is it true that Yoko Ono once came to you before a concert and gave you a T-shirt, and was a very special T-shirt, that one, or is a legend?
No, it's true. So after September 11th, as you know, in New York, September 11th, 2001, like I'd say the 2 months after 9/11, nothing happened. You know, the city was it was a military zone, like it was just shut down, no restaurant. I mean, everything was closed. And the first event that happened was a tribute to John Lennon at Radio City Music Hall.
Right.
And so many people performed at it. And I ended up doing the song Across the Universe with Sean Lennon and Rufus Wainwright. And I was backstage, and Yoko came to our backstage room at Radio City Music Hall and said, "Oh, do you want to wear this shirt?" And she hands me this T-shirt, and I put it on, and it fit perfectly. And I was like, "Wow, thank you so much." And she said, "Oh, it was John's. I haven't washed it since he died."
Oh my God, oh, really?
And I thought, okay, so I'm basically wearing a phenomenal piece of history. To be super clear, the moment our performance was done, I had to give the shirt back. Like, it wasn't it wasn't, here, take this piece of history for yourself.
Forever.
It was, you can wear this for the next 15 minutes. But it was very disconcerting putting it on. And when she said, "It hasn't been washed since he died," I was like, so I'm mingling my DNA. My skin cells are now mingled with John Lennon's via his T-shirt.
Oh, that's so funny. And also in your book and documentary, you have so many stories, and there are some light stories, funny stories, and also very tragic, dramatic stories. One story that I heard in Italy, instead, I was curious about it. Sorry for the stupid question. You can also say, look, I don't want to answer the stupid question. But is it true that once you came in Italy to Sanremo Festival, who is for our international friends, is like the most important music festival that we have in Italy, and you asked to have everything white in your room plus a white tunnel to go on stage?
No,
that's
no. I mean, there's
fake news.
Nothing could be further from the truth. The only thing I ever ask for backstage is some vegan food, and ideally that backstage not smell like cigarettes. Like,
right.
I've never specified the color of anything. No, I mean, I hear stories like that about people like Mariah Carey,
right?
And maybe someone could think I'm high maintenance because I want vegan food backstage. But no, I've never walked a special way to a stage down a color coordinated hallway. It's never even crossed my mind. Like, that just seems like it'd be so annoying for whoever has to prepare that.
I always go crazy for all of these stories that are out there, and it's always difficult to understand also what is fake news and what is real when you have an incredible fame. And this was my other point. You had this this level of popularity that for me from 0 to 10 is like 100. You know, when someone asks to me, I live in Brighton. By the way, Brighton is a great vegan city, and it's like super. In Brighton we have like everything. We have the vegan shoes shop. I mean, it's like one of those places.
Yeah.
And when friend of mine here asked to me, Monty, are you famous in Italy? I say, look, from 0 to 10, 4. Okay. So if I go in Italy, yeah, sometimes some people recognize me. Hi, that's it. You know, so I can run a very easy life if I go to Italy. But if you are Ronaldo, then it's impossible. So, and you had that level of popularity. So I wonder if it's possible to handle popularity at that level, or it's just impossible. Once it's over a certain level, it's just impossible to deal with that. I mean, what's your take on this?
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things that the documentary that Moby Doc is trying to look at is, you know, we live in this culture where almost everyone assumes that if you have that right combination of fame, money, career, that you'll be happy forever. But there's no evidence to support that idea. In fact, the opposite is true. I mean, it's safe to say that like the moment someone becomes a famous public figure entertainer, practically speaking, it knocks 10 or 20 years off their life.
Right.
You know, where would Kurt Cobain be right now if Nevermind had sold 100,000 copies? You know, where would John Lennon be if he had never, I mean, there's that amazing scene I'm sorry, it's a spoiler alert, at the end of the movie Yesterday, when we sort of see what would have happened if John Lennon had never been a famous musician, you know? And so it's basically like so many people, you enter into fame assuming it's perfect, you know, and its beginning, it's like a drug. Like all of a sudden, everyone's being nice to you, you know, you're making money, you're being invited to fancy parties, like things are great. And then a little bit of time passes and the old issues start coming out, you know, the depression, the anxiety, confusion. But then you start blaming yourself. You start thinking like, well, what am I doing wrong? Why, like I'm famous, why am I not happier? And then you feel guilty because you're like, oh, I can't believe I'm complaining about fame. But then we look at the evidence, you know, whether it's Michael Jackson, whether it's Prince, whether it's whomever, like the people who've really been quote unquote, like almost technically destroyed by fame, you know, or at least their life expectancy was so greatly reduced by it. So I'm very grateful for the fame that I've had because it was incredibly educational. You know, I mean, you learn so much by going through something rather than observing it from the outside. But also the best thing about fame for me is simply being able to draw attention to the issues that I care about.
Yeah, sure.
You know, and learning to sort of keep your ego as far away as possible. Because like we all have egos, it's so easy to fall into that trap of, you know, wanting the validation of the world in order to feel happy. You know, and the truth is happiness should come from your friends, your family, your health, the work that you love, spirituality, creativity. Like these are the things that can actually deliver happiness. You know, likes on social media cannot deliver lasting happiness. You know, standing on stage in front of 150,000 people is great. It cannot deliver lasting happiness. And when you expect it to, that's when you start to lose your mind.
But how do you, how is it possible to perform in front of 150,000 people? I mean, you know, in a stadium with people that are just, you know, there for you and you feel like God. And then you finish and you go, I don't know, in the hotel and there are no 150,000 people. How do you deal with that?
It can be, I mean, I know a lot of musicians will have a party waiting backstage. So the moment they come off stage, they go backstage and it's the craziness, the party continues.
Right.
But it can be, and I'm not complaining, it can be very confusing because you're on stage and you think to yourself, oh, all these people love me, and then you walk backstage and you're in a room by yourself with a bottle of water.
Yeah.
And you just sort of, and your brain's like, where'd they go? Like, those are the people who love us. That's our family. Why aren't we with them right now? Instead of sitting in like a cold, crummy backstage room with like an old leather couch and a broken refrigerator, so again, I'm not complaining, but it's cognitively very challenging.
I see. Also because probably fame is something that you can't really schedule, because maybe you start to be a little bit famous and then suddenly maybe you go viral, or suddenly you start to sell millions of copies and you were not ready for it. Maybe you wanted to be a little bit famous, but not so famous. And so you can't really control that kind of level of fame. So this is probably also the problem connected, I guess.
It's a very strange process, and in a weird way, I'm very grateful for having gone through it, because as I mentioned before, like, I've learned so much. Like, we live in this culture that glorifies fame, that glorifies celebrity, and once you've been through it, you realize, oh, it's a weird institution. That the institution of fame and celebrity is just, it's weird. And the narcissism and the entitlement and the ego and the self-loathing that come along with it, until you're in the middle of it, you'll never see any of those darker things. Or I guess you can if you watch TMZ, or if you watch a documentary about Michael Jackson, you'll pretty clearly see, like, oh, there's a very dark side to fame. Like, just imagine if Michael Jackson had grown up in a healthy family and maybe was like a talented person who made some music, sang in his church, he'd still be alive and he'd probably be relatively happy, and so it's again, I'm grateful that I've gone through it, because I'm really grateful for the perspective that I have. And perspective is by definition the result of experience, the cumulative result of experience. And you can't really be upset about experience if you're grateful for the perspective that you have.
Sure. On the other side, we don't know each other, but I mean, following you.
But we're in the bald guy club together. Like,
we are, yes. It's the best club in the world.
Like, deep down, we all know each other.
Yeah. But on the other side, following for, I don't know, 30 years, I'm 49 this year, and if I should have said, look, there are three people, I don't know, there is Axl Rose, Michael Jackson, and Moby, and fame will happen to them. Who will react better? I would have said Moby. I mean, also because I remember you had some philosophy degree, or I don't know, you looked so wise and ready to handle fame. So I was a bit surprised when reading your book and watching your documentary about your roller coaster there. So that's it. I just maybe it doesn't matter what kind of preparation you have or what kind of person you are.
I mean, I think that the thing that saved me is that I became famous later.
Right.
I mean, poor Michael Jackson, and no one will think of this as a bad thing, but poor him, like, he never knew what it was like to not be famous. He had no sense of self. He never knew what it was like to work in a grocery store. He never knew what it was like to cut lawns so that you can buy records. He never knew what it was like, to just be normal. And, Axl Rose, same thing. He became so famous at such an early age. Like, neurochemically, that does very, very challenging things. So even though I was almost completely destroyed, by alcohol, drug addiction, fame, etc., I think because it happened to me a little later on, in a way, my neurochemistry was a bit more intrepid or resilient.
Got it.
because, you know, for me, huge fame came when I was what, like 32 years old. So I was already a grown up. And it still almost completely destroyed me. So I'm amazed by the people who actually sort of become famous and seem reasonably well adjusted. You know, like I don't know Jerry Seinfeld, but he seems like kind of a normal, well-adjusted guy. How did he manage to hold on to that through, you know, that type of fame? Like it, but that's the rarity.
Yeah, yeah, sure. I have so many questions in my head, but we have 5 minutes. The first one is it true that David Bowie was opening your tour in a tour festival, or is it a legend?
It was. So technically, but I need to explain it because there's a very good reason for it.
Right.
Technically, when David Bowie and I went on tour together, he went on before I did.
Right.
But the reason he was the headliner in terms of like he got paid more and his name got bigger billing, the reason was that by going on earlier, he could leave sooner. So he came to me before we went on tour and he said, if you don't mind, I'd like to go on before you. He's like, so that way, he's like, I don't have to sit in traffic leaving the venue.
Oh, come on, that's fantastic.
Because we were playing, you know, like these venues that held 20, 30,000 people. That's a lot of traffic to sit in. And so it was just this simple thing. He didn't want to sit in traffic. And so that's why he went on before me.
And is it true that he was singing Heroes on your sofa and holding you coffee in your apartment like that, like a normal human being, you know, but David Bowie is just there.
Yeah, he's my favorite musician of all time. And then in 1999, he moved in across the street from me in Lower Manhattan, in Little Italy, actually. And we became friends. We spent some holidays together. We went on tour together. We worked together. And there was this one amazing morning. He came over to my apartment on Mott Street, and he brought coffee from Café Gitan. And we sat on my couch and we played Heroes on acoustic guitar together. And that's why, so I'm the album that I'm putting out in May, it's called Reprise. It's all orchestral acoustic versions of my own songs. And the one cover version is Heroes. And the reason I included it, apart from the fact that it's such a beautiful song, was sort of an homage or tribute to my friendship with David, but also that moment of sitting on my couch, playing this very simple, plaintive version of Heroes.
Wow, that's incredible, really. Also because meeting these people that maybe are, you know, so inspiring for you, and then they dare and you are friends with them. I don't know. It changes everything for an artist. What about your music now? I mean, is it it's not your job, or is it your passion? Well, what it is?
Music for me. Because luckily, what I've realized, I'm 55 years old. For me to be a hugely successful pop musician at 55 would be impossible. It would be absurd. You know, like if I was suddenly trying to, like, I don't know, put out music videos where I dance with Cardi B, that would be unbelievably sad for me. And so in a way, there's a liberation there. Like, you know, I don't expect, if I release an album, I don't expect to make money from it. I usually don't even expect people to pay that much attention to it, which means I can just love the fact that I get to make music, you know. And and I don't read reviews, I don't read articles. I just love the act of making music and releasing music. And if nothing happens, that's fine, because I've already had so much joy from the act of making music, you know. So, and there's something empowering as well, where like when you don't need the recognition or validation of other people, when, you know, the satisfaction and the joy is being by myself in my studio working on music, and it doesn't involve good or bad reviews or sales or ticket sales or likes on social media. It's just a very sort of almost like spiritual, individualistic process.
You just enjoy the process. And are you experimenting with these NFT, non-fungible tokens, to try to create some scarce digital piece of art or something like that?
I'm sure that there are people who are doing really interesting things with that. There are two reasons I'm not at present getting into it. One is I'm wary of things that seem that they're only driven by money.
Right.
And I've yet to really hear anyone talk about the sort of the philanthropic or the creative utility of an NFT. It seems like it's just a money grab, which is great for the people who can do it. I just don't want to do that. But the other is, and I'm going to get in trouble for saying this, the blockchain needs to be fixed. The original reason for creating the blockchain, for creating crypto, was very egalitarian. It was very democratic. And right now it's using so much energy. I mean, I don't think people are fully aware of like the carbon footprint of the blockchain. The blockchain uses basically as much energy as Germany. And It doesn't really create anything. It just creates fleeting wealth for a few people. So until the blockchain can figure out how to address its carbon footprint, I just as soon have nothing to do with it.
Got it. Moby, fantastic. I'm so happy for this chat. Good luck for your Italian version of the book. By the way, are you familiar with some Italian words? The title is Oltre ogni limite, which is a different title than the original. The meaning is more like I don't know, over the top, over the limits, something like that. The
thing with translations is you just never know what they mean. If you release a book and it's translated into 30 different languages, you just have to trust that it's okay. And if it's not, try not to worry about it too much.
No, it's a good title. It's a good title because give you the idea of the extreme ways, what happened after you pass the limits and so on. And good luck also for your new album. And it was such a pleasure to have a chat with you.
It's really nice. And I'll see you at our local bald guy.
I'll meet you there. I'll be there. Count on me.
Okay. Thanks again.
Bye.
Bye.